In the bustling heart of Alexandria, as dusk approached, Elias felt the urgency to find accommodation. With his bag weighing heavily on his shoulder, Elias began seeking recommendations from nearby merchants. He was relieved to understand some Arabic, a language he had learned during his time in Florence. Just then, he was approached by a man with an amiable smile.
"Looking for a place to stay? I know just the spot,"
Yusuf said in Arabic with a convincing tone.
"For only 6 falls, you'll get a great room, clean, spacious, and with a splendid view of the city. It's a fantastic deal for the money. I'm Yusuf, by the way. I help travelers like yourself find the best accommodations in Alexandria. Trust me, you won't be disappointed with what I have to offer."
Yusuf appeared knowledgeable and trustworthy, his articulate speech and fine clothes adding to his credibility. Elias, intrigued by Yusuf's offer, responds cautiously.
6 falls sounds like a fair deal. Is this guest house far from here?
Yes, it is just around the corner.
Elias, cautiously hopeful yet somewhat unsure, agrees and follows Yusuf. As they walk, Yusuf's curiosity about Elias's background grows.
So you speak Arabic quite well. Where are you from?
I was born in Rostock, a port city in the north of the Holy Roman Empire. It's near the Baltic Sea. After that, I trained as a merchant in Florence. You see, I tried to establish my own business there. But with the complex bureaucracy, endless laws, and the dominance of families like the Medici, it was tough. I couldn't succeed. That's why I've come to Alexandria. I've heard great things about it. It's my final chance to prove to my stepfather and family that I am just as capable and successful as his own children.
As they continue, Yusuf peppers Elias with questions. The conversation makes time pass quickly, but soon Elias notices they've been walking for quite a while and the bustling center is far behind. Elias, growing anxious.
How much farther? You said it was close, but we've been walking for a while now.
We're almost there, just a little further. Trust me, it's worth the walk.
Elias's mind raced, his heart pounding with a mix of frustration and uncertainty. He felt a twinge of suspicion at Yusuf's overly friendly demeanor and incessant questions.
Is he genuinely helpful, or is there an ulterior motive?
Elias thought to himself. The unfamiliar streets, the fading light, and the distance from the city's heart added to his unease. But the thought of returning to the market, starting his search from scratch and admitting this entire walk was a waste, was equally disheartening. Despite a nagging unease, Elias decided to follow Yusuf. He remembered hearing stories about travelers being misled, but he shrugged off these thoughts, convincing himself that he was too savvy to fall for such tricks. As they walked, Yusuf spoke of the luxurious amenities waiting for him at the guest house, a lavish room with a view and exceptional food, all at a surprisingly low cost. Elias, despite finding it hard to believe, felt a surge of optimism.
Such a deal must be rare, but not impossible.
Elias thought, ignoring the improbability of such luxury being so affordable. Emerging from the alley, they arrived at a modest building far from the promised grandeur, nothing like what Yusuf had described. Realization dawned on Elias. He had been misled, his judgment clouded by ignoring the probability of deceit in a city known for its cunning merchants. The modest exterior of the guest house looms before Elias. He turns to Yusuf, expecting to part ways, but Yusuf clears his throat, signaling unfinished business.
"There is the matter of my assistance,"
Yusuf begins, his tone shifting subtly.
"Navigating these streets, finding this place. That's worth 10 falls.
Elias stiffens, shock flaring in his eyes.
10 falls? That's too much.
He protests, his voice wavering between disbelief and anger. Yusuf steps closer, his friendly demeanor hardening. Consider it the cost of safe guidance. The streets at night are no place for a stranger. Elias's throat tightens, a knot of anxiety forming. He feels Yusuf's gaze, intense and expectant. The air grows thick, tension mounting like the unyielding walls around them. Elias's mind races, contemplating Yusuf's aggressive stance. Yusuf's manipulation is clear. He's playing on fear, using the threat of the unknown to coerce payment.
But I could have found my way.
Elias counters weakly, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Yusuf scoffs, stepping back with a shrug.
Perhaps, but at what risk? You're paying for the trouble you've avoided.
Elias feels his heart pounding, a mix of frustration and helplessness swirling within him. His skin prickles with the threat of a situation spiraling out of control. The weight of his own safety, the need to avoid conflict in a foreign land, presses heavily on him. With a resigned sigh, Elias reaches into his pouch, counting out the coins. Each falls feels like a betrayal of his judgment, a surrender to intimidation. He hands them over, his stomach churning with the bitterness of being outwitted. Yusuf's smile returns as he pockets the money, oblivious or indifferent to Elias's turmoil.
A wise choice. Good night, and enjoy your stay.
Elias watches Yusuf disappear into the night, the sound of his footsteps echoing in the empty street. A wave of relief washes over him, but it's tinged with a deep sense of outrage and vulnerability. Elias turns towards the guest house, his steps heavy, his mind replaying the encounter. The lesson is harsh but clear. The cost of naivety can be high, and the streets of Alexandria demand more than just coins. They demand cautious wisdom. Elias, worn down by defeat and resignation, enters the guest house, feeling the heavy burden of reality. At the reception, he is startled to find the room cost twice what Yusuf had promised. Too exhausted and disheartened to dispute the charge, Elias realizes it's too late to seek another refuge. The thought of starting over is overwhelming. Reluctantly, he pays, each coin deepening his disillusionment. The guest house, a stark contrast to his aspirations, stands as a harsh symbol of his shattered expectations. He is handed a key to a meager, bare room, far removed from the comfort and luxury he had hoped would mark the beginning of his new life in Alexandria. As Elias lay in the dimly lit room, his mind refused to quiet. The events of the day replayed like a relentless tide, each wave crashing with lessons he wished he had learned sooner.
Where did I go wrong?
He thought, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. The hard mattress beneath him felt like a physical manifestation of his poor choices. The room, with its bare walls and the faint smell of the sea, seemed to mock his grand dreams. First, there was Yusuf's offer, too good to be true. Elias realized he had let the allure of an easy solution cloud his judgment.
I should have been more skeptical, asked more questions.
He chastised himself. The realization that he had fallen prey to a well-worn trick of manipulation stung his pride. Then there was the moment of decision in the alley.
Why didn't I trust my instincts?
He wondered. He had felt something was off, but chose to ignore it, hoping against hope that his luck in Alexandria would be different. But hope, he now understood, was not a strategy. The payment to Yusuf, the surrendering of his hard-earned money, was perhaps the hardest pill to swallow. Elias recognized his reluctance to confront, to cause a scene, had cost him dearly.
I let fear dictate my actions,
he admitted to himself. As he lay there, a mix of anger, regret, and a tinge of fear for the future coursed through him.
This city is not going to be easy,
he mused. The realization that he had used up a significant portion of his funds in just one day filled him with dread. The thought of facing his stepfather, having failed yet again, was unbearable. But amidst the turmoil, a spark of resolve ignited within him.
Tomorrow, I will not make the same mistakes. I will be more vigilant, more discerning.
He promised himself to not only learn the ways of this new city, but to also trust himself more. As these thoughts swirled in his mind, exhaustion finally took over. His body, tired from the journey and the emotional toll of the day, succumbed to sleep. Elias drifted off, not into a peaceful rest, but into a restless, dream-filled slumber, where the lessons of the day danced mockingly around him, each one a building block for the days to come.
The main cognitive bias evident in Elias's story is the neglect of probability bias. This bias occurs when an individual underestimates the likelihood of negative outcomes or overestimates the chances of positive outcomes despite evidence or common knowledge suggesting otherwise. In the story, Elias dismisses the probability of being misled or scammed in an unfamiliar city, despite his initial unease and the common occurrences of such deceptions in bustling trade cities like Alexandria. His optimism about Yusuf's offer and the lack of critical assessment of the situation reflects a disregard for the actual risks involved. This neglect of the probability of negative outcomes leads him into a less than ideal situation, showing how powerful and influential this bias can be in decision-making, especially in new and unfamiliar environments.